Coming up, we're going to build a shelter from a poncho, see the world's most stylish man, and also use that poncho as a ground sheet. I want to start by giving you a quick look at the tarp being worn as a simple poncho. You can see it's got a hood, it easily covers my large backpack as well. It's perfectly serviceable and I've got absolutely no complaints about this. It's also got press studs on either side so that you can do it up and stop it flapping around in the wind so much. I will say when it comes to tarps, I'm more of a stuffer than a folder. It comes with this rather flat square bag, which I don't think I'll use for storing this. I'd rather just stuff it in a pocket one way or another. So as a poncho, this is great. I'm really happy with that. As a tarp, you can really see where costs have been cut to make this a very low price entry level item. But don't worry, because we'll talk about that in more detail. For now, this is the name of it, the eLife Ac Waterproof Poncho Multifunctional something or other. So basically, it's another one of these randomly named companies selling low-cost items on Amazon. And bear in mind, this is only $16.99 in the UK at the time of recording, which I think is excellent, and I'll tell you why throughout this video. But I think the first compromise you can see is that although this is roughly what you'd expect width-wise, just over 140 centimetres, it's about 2 metres long, which I feel it should be just a little bit longer, and at 620 grams it also feels like it's a little bit heavier than it could be. An area that I was quite sceptical about was having the hood as a big hole opening up right in the middle of it when using it as a tarp for a shelter, and I'm pleased to say that it all tightens up quite nicely, and to be honest, I'm not really worried about it at all after testing it out. This, however, is the single biggest issue with this product, and it's a sign that it's a cheaper, less premium item. It only has points on the corners to attach pegs, poles, cords and so on, which means between those corner points you have a lot of flappy tarp. Here it's not too windy, so you can see it's still a decent shelter, it's a decent size, and it's keeping the wind off me if I'm just walking and wanted to hunker down for a bit. The next issue is that those attachment points are just simple grommets, so my walking poles barely stick up through them, especially this one where the end's been sheared off. So the first thing I need to do to make this more usable is add my own little string or cord loops around those so that there's more space to put a pole through and get a more solid pitch. I'll just pitch this a little bit lower so that it's more of a direct overhead shelter, which is how you'd be more likely to sleep under a little tarp like this. However, I envision myself in the warmer weather using this as a very small flying A-frame, and that again is where you see the lack of any other attachment points between those corners become a real issue. Now, I want to just say again at this point that this is $16.99 in the UK at the moment, so I'm not going to criticise it too harshly, because if you wanted a more premium version of something like this that already had all of the various attachments on it, you could easily be paying towards 3 times the price. So if I have to add maybe £1 or £2 worth of my own cordage to make this more usable, then I'm still not going to be too upset with it. Saying that though, you can see that without having a central attachment point for my poles, trying to create a flying A-frame is an absolute nightmare. It's constantly slipping out of place, it's very unstable, it's very saggy in the middle, so what you would have to do to rectify this is have your own cord go in between the 2 poles to then drape the tarp itself over so that you add a ridgeline underneath the tarp, if that makes sense. But it is making it very awkward and very fiddly to start building a simple shelter like this. And I suppose really what I need to do is look into sewing on my own extra attachment points, which would make it infinitely easier, believe me. So we're about to use this as a ground sheet, which is of course a simple process of just staking it out to the ground. And then we will build a forester's tent shelter over it using a 3 by 2.9 metre tarp, so a much bigger one of course, but it's just to give you an indication that I haven't got any issues with randomly planting the poncho down on the ground and walking over it, rolling over it and dragging it about. I'm not worried that it's too frail or fragile to use as a ground sheet, and that should be another positive for something like this, and maybe that comes with it being slightly heavier than I feel it should be. So just to summarise, I suppose, before I let you carry on with your day, it's really low price, so I think you can forgive some of its shortcomings as a tarp, As a poncho, I can't fault it and I can't ask for anything more from it. As a ground sheet, again, as long as you're sensible and fold up that hood section correctly, you're not going to have a terrible wet patch in the middle of your shelter, hopefully. The only real downside that I can't come up with some kind of bodged workaround for is the fact I'd like to see it maybe 30 to 50 centimetres longer, just so it can be offering a little more shelter in windier conditions. Looking at this as both a poncho and a tarp, and then coupling that price point with it, I'm really happy with this and I would recommend it. I'll leave an Amazon associate link to this down in the description below. If you buy through that, I will get a commission, so that's a way to support the channel if you are looking at one of these. Feel free to subscribe and check out my other videos like this, and if you want to help me out, consider becoming a PayPal supporter, a channel member, or leaving a super thanks like some of my recent supporters: Steve B, John B, Melissa L, Sean B, BL Beach, L Hughes, Dawn H, A Sanford, T Seymour, David D, and Kaz G. Thank you very much, my friends. You really help out with all of this stuff, as I say, especially at a time like this in the world. Until the next time, keep it interesting, keep it poncho worthy, have a fantastic day, and of course, farewell.